Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the DeFi Buddy YouTube channel. My name is Colin Mason, and today I'm going to be talking through, how I use this impermanent loss calculator. And it may not be what most people do when they use this impermanent loss calculator. A lot of what people are trying to do when using this is they're trying to compare what could my position look like if I enter a liquidity pool compared to what it would be if I had just held them, right? Comparing strategy A and strategy B, or these two scenarios, it shows us how impermanent loss impacts our positions. But that's not entirely how I use this calculator, and I use it as more of a simulator to kind of see, well, what would happen if the price does this, and what would happen if the price does that, and what would happen if I earn this amount of fees, and what would happen if I earned that amount of fees. For me, it's a great way to simulate various things happening within the market. And for me personally, I usually just focus on strategy B, right? Because I don't necessarily compare my liquidity pools to if I would have just held, right? Again, most folks, that's probably what they use this for. For me, I know, hey, I'm going to be entering a liquidity pool, but I want to see, how does my liquidity pool work if, again, the price goes up, if the price goes down, if this was my target APY, if I underperformed, if I overperformed. And I wanted to run those various scenarios before I actually enter the pool. So I'm going to walk through a few of those examples here. So let's enter. This is just a wrapped ETH USDC pool, let's just say, nice and simple. And I'm going to use a little bit of a bigger position so that we can see, you'll see it nice and clear. So I'm going to do a $10,000 position, and I'm going to kind of mess with the range a little bit as well. So this is why I love this simulator, is because we can kind of project it out to be like, okay, if I were to do this range, what would it be? So let's say I did just right in the middle, and I did 10 on the upper bound, and oops, I'm messing it up here. Oh, I'm messing it up. Oh, here we go. Let's go like this. Let's go -10 to the downside, +10 to the upside. There we go. Okay, with the current price of ETH right now at 2,787, I'm pretty much right in the middle, right? To the downside, I'm sitting at 2,500. To the upside, I'm just about 3,000. So by being roughly in the middle, I can now mess with a couple of things. I can mess with the future price, right? That's the first thing. So if I wanted to kind of see, hey, what would my liquidity pool value be worth if the future price were to go up? What would happen if the future price were to go down? But one thing that you would notice right now is that I am already earning $231 of yield here by default, and that I can also shift. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to scroll all the way down, and you're going to see this LP yield settings. And so it's automatically, for this pool, is already set at about 120% APR, right? But what I can do is I can adjust that daily yield, to maybe be like, 60%. Right? If I were to go up to 62% at 0.17% per day on average in daily yield, if that's what I'm sort of projecting out based on the width of my range. And again, you can always use the liquidity pool, or what we call the simulator button here, to kind of determine, hey, what would my APR be? But once you get that, you can kind of come down here and say, okay, well, based on the width of my range, I would probably expect to be doing about 60 to 70% APR, let's say. Right? So I'll come down here and I'll adjust that. And then we can also adjust days of active position. So for me, I like to set that as low as possible to start, because I want this picture to show me, not a yield being compounded in. I just want to see, hey, with the lowest amount of days being active, what does that look like for yield? And so you'll notice that when I enter this position, and the future price being exactly what the current price is, and only 1 day of active yield, you can see that this strategy B, or my liquidity pool value, will be 10,000, which is what I started with, plus about $17 worth of LP yield based on what I put, down here below. Now, what I'll do is I'll actually increase to this, let's do a week, 7 days, and I come up, and you can see that 17 has now increased to 119, because that's, extrapolating out, if I were in range for 7 days, how much yield would I have generated? And by this estimation, it'd be about $119 in yield. Now, understand, as a liquidity pool goes, it's based on a bunch of different factors. So it's not going to be a fixed rate that you're receiving, but on average, that's what you could expect. Okay. And that's taken into consideration that the future price is exactly what the current price is. And so now where this simulation gets kind of fun is you can change the future price. So let's say it would go up to 2,900. Right? If the current price went from 2,700 to 2,900, what would that do to my liquidity pool? Well, number one is it shifts the ratio of my assets, right? If I were to go back here, actually, let's start at the beginning. You'll see I have about $5,200 of USDC, $4,700 worth of ETH, or 1.7 ETH, 52.44 worth of USDC. When I change this future price to 2,900, you'll notice that shifts the ratio of my assets. So not only do I see a dollar value difference in my pool here, but I can also see, hey, what happens to the ratio of assets as the current price moves? And as the current price moves, let's go to like 30, to 3,000, which is pretty close to the top of my range. You'll notice that ratio shifts even more, and so does the dollar value of this liquidity pool. So the reason why I like this simulator so much is, again, because I can simulate and I can do different scenarios to see, well, what would happen if the price did this? What would happen if the price did that? What would happen if I went out of range to the top side at 3,100? Well, I'm fully converted out of ETH and into USDC, and I would have 10,232 USDC at the top of my range, right? Meaning I'm fully converted out of ETH and into USDC, and I would have earned $119 of fees during that time to bring me to a total of 10,351. So again, I love this for various scenarios. The one last thing I'll do is kind of show to the downside here. I can say, well, what happens if the price goes to 2,700, right? Well, the dollar value of my LP has gone down, right? Because LPs, liquidity pools, are long vehicles. So the dollar value of my LP would have gone down. But if I was in range for a few days and I generated fees, you'll notice that this green box gets highlighted because that shows, hey, liquidity pools will actually outperform just hodl positions due to the fact that, I'm earning and generating yield, right? So lots of really cool things that you can do with this strategy. And then one last thing I'll do is actually I'll push it fully out of range here to 2,500, which means now I'm fully converted out of USDC and fully into ETH. You notice the dollar value difference here, or the dollar value, I started 10,000, but it went down to 9,300 at the bottom of my range because, again, it's a long vehicle, and you'll see that the LP yield I earned is there. What I'll do is I'll actually move it back to, let's go to 2,600 here. You notice that I started with 10K. The price of ETH has gone down in my range, so the dollar value of my LP has shifted, and this is how much I've earned. But let's say I've stayed in the pool for a whole month, right? If I were to bump this up to a whole 30 days, you'll notice that my $119 in 7 days has been increased to about $510. And so this strategy, by being in the liquidity pool, if I stay in range for 30 days, it shows me that I'll actually come out on top, that the dollar value of my entire position is greater than the 10K I started with, even though the price went down. And so again, I love using DeFi Buddy to help me simulate various scenarios so that I can run through it and be like, okay, how long do I need to be in range for to me to come out on top, even if the price drops to this figure? So hopefully this brought you some value. DeFi Buddy is an incredible tool that you can do a lot of different things with. Like I said, we have the impermanent loss calculator is what I've been using, but we also have the correlation tool. We have simulators. We have hedging calculators. A lot of things are in the pipeline as well that are coming out. So don't hesitate to get in here, click around, run different scenarios, and use DeFi Buddy to help you master the skill set of liquidity providing and being a crypto investor. With that being said, we'll see you in the next video. Peace.